Hello everyone, this is Pennsilyvania and we are back again, and here now we have another video for you, and we're going to talk about Bill Cosby and reflect on the recent news of his conviction of sexual assault being overturned recently in Pennsilyvania Supreme Court. Now, I don't normally cover topics like this on the channel, but I understand that it's massive news, and Bill Cosby was previously involved within the entertainment industry of television and movies, so I thought it's appropriate enough to cover on this overall channel. Now, we all know the brief history of the case overall, but just to go over it quickly. The whole issue started way back in 2004, where female basketball player Andrea Constad came forward accusing Cosby of sexual assault. No charges were made and an out-of-court settlement was agreed, in which Constad received around about £3.8 to £4 million. In 2014 and 15, the case was reopened amidst a huge wave of allegations made against Bill Cosby. Over 50 women came forward accusing him of sexual assault. Cosby couldn't be charged on these allegations, but they could be used to establish a pattern of behaviour when reopening the previous case. Now, we have to remember that this was during the whole implosion of the Me Too movement, with several harassment allegations being made about high celebrities within the entertainment industry. Cosby was then eventually found guilty in 2018. Following a 2017 mistrial, he was sentenced to 3 to 10 years imprisonment. We move on, of course, to recent events when the Pennsilyvania Supreme Court overturned his original conviction. Now, the reason for this was due to a violation of an agreement that Bill Cosby had with the prosecutor at the 2005 case, Bruce Castor, where he made a promise to Bill Cosby that if he testified in court given a deposition against the 2004 allegations, that he will face no charges or prosecution. This essentially meant that Bill Cosby would be revoking his Fifth Amendment rights, where he testifies, and he would be left open to any kind of questioning during the case. When the case was reopened in 2015, the succeeding prosecutor and judge had overridden the agreement that Castor had with Cosby. And this is the point of the overruling. Despite a different prosecutor at the time, the same terms of the original case still apply. So this brings about all sorts of questions, and there's been massive ongoing debate when the news recently broke online. And regardless of what people think about Bill Cosby, whether they think he's innocent or guilty, I think there is overall a bigger question in terms of the legal process and how individuals are tried and potentially convicted in courts overall. I think it raises massive issues in terms of how the legal process is carried out. And certainly in my opinion, it raises the various questions. How can somebody guaranteed a non-conviction can be made before a trial? You know, what kind of legal loopholes enables a prosecutor to be able to go to an individual who's been accused and state that if they give a deposition that they will 100% face no prosecution charges regardless of the verdict? You know, that in itself is very shady and very underhanded in my mind. Now, people have remarked the whole reason for this is that the original prosecutor, Castor, he realises that there was insufficient evidence to prosecute Bill Cosby on a sexual assault charge, but maybe if he could get Bill Cosby to give a deposition in court, he may be able to get some civil damages claims for his overall client. So that was the reason why he pushed so hard for Bill Cosby to give a disposition in court. Now, many people could argue, well, why did Bill Cosby do this? Why did Bill Cosby not invoke his Fifth Amendment entitlement? Because at the end of the day, it was basically her word against his. Because the other reason why Castor had struggled so much to get a conviction was because Cosby didn't come forward till a year later after the incident. This made it a lot more difficult for the district attorney to push forward for a conviction. So many people have argued, why did Bill Cosby go forward with it? Maybe he felt that by going ahead with the trial, it would make it seem that he had nothing to hide, that he was innocent, and that by not going ahead of it, it would maybe make him seem more guilty. It also raises the question of why the agreement that Castor had with Bill Cosby, why wasn't that originally challenged and thrown out? Because despite the fact that there was no official record of the agreement, the district attorney did release a press statement stating that he had the agreement with Bill Cosby, and I think this was part of the overall settlement that he had with Onstet's defense lawyers, that they had this overall agreement in place as well, because there's no way that he could make that sole agreement with Bill Cosby without notifying other prosecutors or defendant attorneys within the overall case. When the case was reopened back in 2015 and eventually reaching the overall verdict in 2017 and 18, if the judge had overruled Castel's original agreement, then why didn't that overrule stand? Why did the Pennsylvania Supreme Court have the ability to go back and overturn that original decision? And if so, why hasn't the judge or the prosecutor from 2017 trial been held accountable? Because what we're looking at here is essentially Bill Cosby had been imprisoned incorrectly. The proper legal processes had not been carried out. Therefore, you have sent someone to prison on a false technicality, if you like, or a false processing within the legal system. And that's a very huge issue, because this isn't like you are fining the person or you're giving him a short period of community service. You are essentially taking away that individual's life. It doesn't matter whether Bill Cosby is very old or very young. It doesn't matter. You are, by sending them to prison, taking away all of their entitlement, their whole livelihood, their ability to see their family. You know, this is a very serious case. So again, it highlights very much a big issue within the legal systems that are being used to convict certain individuals. So it really is much more a question of the integrity of the legal processes put in place. It also throws up certain questions. Can we trust the legal system going forward? How many other individuals have been wrongfully imprisoned? How many individuals are serving long-term sentences because of certain legal loopholes or deficiencies within the process systems? How many guilty individuals are out there currently walking free because of certain flaws within the legal processes? Was Bill Cosby convicted more not because of there was sufficient evidence, but more because of the pressure and the euphoria behind the Me Too movement? I know people have short-term memories, but you have to remember at the time, during the whole movement, when it really was potent and had really exploded much more in terms of social culture, we had multiple individuals, as I mentioned before, being brought up or being accused of doing certain abusive treatments in terms of women. And it really got to the point when men in general were so scared in terms of interacting with women, dating women. They were so scared of being accused of assaulting women. There was this overall fear that many men could go to jail just on a woman's say so because of this whole Me Too movement. It really was a social phenomenon at the time that had a huge impact culturally on how we consume entertainment and our attitudes towards the relationships between men and women. And was there a pressure? Did they really feel the overall pressure of this? And that's why they felt, because Bill Cosby was such a well-known celebrity, that they had to make an overall example of him in order to appease the movement. Because if we really think about it, at the end of the day, when we look at the case in its original inception back in 2004 and 5, when we go to the case being reopened back in 2015, we also have to remember that there was a mistrial in 2017 as well. We really have to think about, was there really been, or has there really been enough evidence to really convict Bill Cosby overall? And if we look at the overall instances over the timeline, I guess the answer has to be no. There has never been sufficient evidence to really put forward a 100% conclusive conviction against Bill Cosby. It doesn't matter that you had over 50 women coming forward with allegations, because once again, there was a lack of evidence to support those women's allegation. And once again, it begs the question, if the original district attorney felt that it was a struggle to convict Cosby because Amanda Consted had taken over a year to come forward, then when we look at the various other allegations, these involved individuals that didn't come forward for 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, some even 30 years. So that would have made it even harder to gain a conviction from those allegations, because if we look at this from a logical point of view, what forensic evidence would there have been to be able to convict Cosby of those allegations if those people have taken so long to come forward? So that's really the crux of the whole argument here, is that there has never been sufficient evidence to completely and convincingly convict Bill Cosby of these crimes. So that's why it's really such a alarming concern, I would say, the fact that you have incorrectly imprisoned someone. And regardless of what you think about Bill Cosby or not, whether you felt he did produce the crimes or not, again, the fact that what was really used in order to convict Bill Cosby was his original statement, where he did confess to using certain drugs or pills in his interactions with Constead at the time. I think the pills are known as Quaaludes at the time. So that's really what propelled people to think that there is some dishonesty or there's a lack of credibility in terms of Bill Cosby's character. Why is he putting pills in this woman's drink to begin with? So that's really what propelled people, I think, along with the whole implosion of the Me Too movement. That's really the overall perspective from my point of view, is that regardless of what you think of an individual, regardless of whether you think his integrity or his character is called into question, at the end of the day, the two most important elements when it comes to prosecuting and convicting an individual is, one, the level of evidence. Is there sufficient proof, sufficient evidence to put forward a conviction? And two, are the legal processes that have been put in place efficient enough, smooth enough, integral enough to be put forward in order to try and convict that person? And I think in terms of the Bill Cosby case, in terms of those two elements, there was reasonable doubt, or there wasn't sufficient amount given in terms of the evidence and the legal processes put in place to really convict this man. So we wait and see what happens with Bill Cosby. Will he take this further? He is in his late 80s now, coming towards, so will he decide just to live out the rest of his life with his family that he's got left, or will he proceed even further with the case and look for any potential lawsuit against the court that convicted him at the time? We will wait and see. But overall, those are my quick thoughts and feelings on the case. And I think at the end of the day, you have to put your emotions to one side and look at the factual evidence and really feel, was there enough to convict this person, and also feel about the legal processes. So that's my big concern, is the flaws in the current legal processes, not just for previous cases, as I said before, with previous individuals being imprisoned, but also going forward, whether there are going to be future cases where we're going to see future individuals being wrongfully imprisoned because of certain flaws within the legal system. And you have to remember that the legal system really is what society relies on the most in terms of being wronged and seeking justice overall. So that's why I think the biggest concern is raised, regardless of what your feelings are towards Bill Cosby. So those are my thoughts and feelings on the fact that Bill Cosby's conviction has now been overturned by the Pennsilyvania Supreme Court. Let me know what you think in the comments below. As I mentioned at the start of this video, if you'd like to see me cover more topics like this in the future, then just let me know in the comments, and by all means I'll try and provide more videos covering much more of the news and trendy topics as well within this channel. Please also hit and like those subscription and notification buttons so I can provide you with more high quality content like this in the future. But that's it for now. Take care of yourselves, stay at safe distances, and I will see you very, very soon.